Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to our class here on Wednesday night, here with Guy Finley. And I want to welcome you in the room here, as well as welcome to everybody online. Our format tonight, as always, is Guy will give about a 60-minute talk, and then we'll take a 5-minute break, and we'll come back for our Q&A, which is time for everybody to participate. And also on Wednesday night, Guy will ask us to participate as well, both in the room and online. And we always encourage you to take advantage of the participation side of the class because it's every bit as important. So do that. And you can do that online by going to the chat boxes or the GoToWebinar question box, and you can write in things there. You can write in a question, or if you have any technical problems, you can do that there as well. So one final thing here in the room is if you have a cell phone, turn it off. All right, and then we can get going. All right, I'm going to read the topic tonight and the key lesson. Stop getting worked over by anxious thoughts and feelings. And here's the key lesson. Either we have command over our negative reactions, or, without ever knowing so, our reactions take command of us, making us little more than unwitting servants of whatever painful thought or feeling we've empowered to push us around.
Good evening, everyone. And welcome to all of you who are joining us from wherever you are in the world, whatever day or time it is. Whatever painful thoughts or feelings we've empowered to push us around. That's about the last thing that we think, isn't it? That somehow we are complicit in this tug-of-war in our heart and mind. A tug-of-war that has so much pain in it. You know, I've been speaking for a bazillion years. And I don't think there's ever a question that comes to me by those seemingly advanced or just newly fledged students that doesn't ask in one way or another, what do I do with this pain? I remember years ago I was watching a Star Trek episode. This is when William Shatner and Leonard Nimoy were flying around on the Enterprise before they got new bodies and new faces and new ships and everything. And they were someplace, I don't know where they were, looking for some kind of beryllium sphere or something because the ship had an encounter with some Romulans or whatever it was. And they needed a new power source. And they beamed down to a planet, pretty rough place, where the miners were busy bringing up this particular stone, this large gem, and had run into some problem there that they didn't want to report. Anyway, it turns out that they had dug deep enough to find this place where apparently part of what was involved in creating these power sources that allowed the ship to travel at light speed or better than light speed was involved in an area where a certain creature that looked a lot like the stones themselves were mining and drilling through the ground. They're making it possible for them to find these stones. Anyway, the bottom line is, and the reason I'm telling you this, for those of you who remember anything about it, because at some point they were trying to figure out why these creatures were killing the miners that were drilling into their home. And it turned out because they were inadvertently killing the little stones, the little ones. And there came a point in time where there was no way to communicate with these things, so Spock, you all know who Spock is. Spock had to do a mind meld with one of these rock creatures. Now, I don't know why in the name of God certain things stay in your mind, of all things in this polluted brain, to hold onto that particular scene where Spock's on his knees kneeling over this creature and he putting his hands into the mind meld position. And the minute he does, Spock cries out, "Pain! Pain!" I can tell you that Leonard Nimoy is a pretty good actor because he was experiencing and expressing in his action pain. Whether he was leaning over a cardboard cutout that was painted to look like a rock made no difference at all. The point was the creature was in tremendous pain. Don't you think it's the most extraordinary thing in the world that you have lived the number of years that you've lived? And every day, whether you hear it or not, pain, pain, pain because of what they did, what they didn't do, pain because of the way I look, pain because of the way the world is, pain because nothing's going right, pain, pain, pain. And to spend one's whole life and never draw any nearer to understanding what in the name of God is that pain that I have spent my whole life having explained to me and never once released me from the conditions that constantly reappear to produce the same suffering. That is what it means to be a sleeping human being. A sleeping human being is a human being who has made peace with the pain that promises the end of itself in a time to come when at last the conditions blamed for that suffering finally are dispelled. And the reason it's a sleeping human being who lives like that is because they continue to serve that pain, never understanding that what they're serving is their own demise, their own destruction, and ultimately the continuation of a nature that is so corrupted, so divided that it has no idea whatsoever what it is doing to itself. Because, before we get to our list early in the talk, and I want to put this in. There was a student that wrote in and made some comments about last Wednesday's talk, I think it was. Said, he's the most arrogant, self-centered, uncompassionate man I've ever listened to in my life. I'm turning him off. I have never said one word to any of you that isn't true. Not one word that isn't true. And the reason that person turned it off is because the pain was too great to listen to a description of what they were unable to resolve, given what they knew to do and who they had to turn to in order to do that. And presently, you turn to yourself. Because you don't know who else to turn to. And just to be clear, when you say, no, I turn to God or I turn to Christ, you don't turn to God and you don't turn to Christ. You turn to the picture, the image, the belief that you have in those iconic images and persona, and find temporary consolation in them that allows you to get through that moment where, once again, and I'm asking you, when you have pain in your life, when you're suffering, are you not being bullied by that pain? See, this is an amazing thing. And you'll be very glad if you persist with your work. You'll be very glad to one day realize how unbelievably apathetic a human being you have been with regards to turning a blind eye, listen, not to the condition that you don't want, but to what appears in the consciousness that pushes and pulls on you to get through that condition, so that if you finally get through it, you can go back to having your life as you've imagined it to be, at peace with itself. And it's not at peace with itself. No life that can be turned upside down, let alone bullied, is at peace with itself. And you'll be very glad one day, as contradictory as it sounds, to recognize that there is something that almost never-endingly is bullying you to bring an end to what is bullying you. I'll say it again. You will be astonished to see that when you are being bullied by what you believe is an unwanted circumstance or relationship with life or someone in your life, that bully that exists in that moment is there so that it can give you the strength you need to stop being bullied by what you blame your life and its pain on. Do you see it with me? So I want to look at this with you deeply. I have a fascinating story to tell you, and I might add, I've made a drawing of a certain kind. It'll be humiliating when I show it, but I'm not going to be bullied by my fear of your opinion of me. So we're going to make a list together for the purpose of examining where it is that we share in common this pain that we don't understand anything about, because we believe that when that bully shows up, when that pain appears, we believe that it is actually trying to help us get through that condition so that we can be free of that conflict. So let's bring up the list. We're going to start it early. Everyone is invited. We have on Wednesday nights, we make a list. We have everybody in the room contribute, everybody out there contribute, and we examine where it is that we have all the same relationship with these thoughts and feelings that we're about to bring up. So here's the list. Ready? Name one or more of the troubled thoughts or feelings that are able to bully you, prey on you, or simply push you around pretty much at will. Name one or more of the troubled thoughts or feelings that are able to bully you, prey on you, or simply push you around pretty much at will. Now, I'll prime the pump as I always do, and then I'll hope that the people out there, I don't know if Kate's going to be able to send me these things. Eric, do you know if I'm going to get it? I think you will. Okay, I see Katie saying yes from high in the booth. How about just the simplest one? I'm bullied around by anxiety. Am I not bullied by anxious thoughts and feelings? Yes. How about fear? Is fear not a bully? How about the idea that I have to perform to a certain level? Isn't the feeling that I have to perform, isn't that a bully? How about, am I not bullied by wanting people to see me in a certain light? Do you understand that? How else do I explain taking hours or whatever it is that I do, and if not actually dressing and making myself up, trying to figure out what I have to do so I appear like I know what I'm saying and doing, and then everybody will believe in me? Am I not bullied by the fear of doubt? Doesn't doubt bully me, yes or no? Aren't you bullied by spiritual doubt all the time? And where do the questions come from when you are dealing with all of these things that we're talking about? Let me go onto the board, and then I'm going to ask you to contribute. Juan says, how people see me. Yeah, usually wrongly, he says. Of course, Carl. Juan, thoughts that are, I'm bullied by the thoughts that someone is laughing at me, disrespecting me. Are you not bullied by the thought that someone has disrespected you? Yes or no? Claudia, bullied by anxious thoughts for sure. In the room, anybody, please. Terry.
Sense of inadequacy.
I am definitively bullied by feeling inadequate. And when I feel inadequate, the bully is always, we have to do this. What is the bully always telling me to do? Pushing me to do? What is the bully always pushing me to do? Figure out how to be adequate. Do what I have to do to get over this hump of feeling inadequate. So I'm not only bullied by something condemning or otherwise naming my weakness, I'm then bullied by it telling me that if I don't do what it tells me to do, that something worse is going to happen than just feeling inadequate. Yes or no? In the room, anybody? John.
Must make others happy.
I'm bullied by this insanity that I'm here on this planet to ensure the happiness of other people. Now, what are some of the ways, by the way, that I'm bullied by that incredibly false belief? Let's clarify that. Is not every false belief a bully? Actually, is not every belief a bully? If you can make the leap, yes, it is. Jane says, I'm bullied by time having passed me by. In other words, I'm bullied by time, because whatever it was I did in the life that I've had, it's led me to this place where I'm still in this amount of pain and still fighting with circumstances to try to change them so I can feel better about myself. Denise, I'm bullied by past mistakes. We know this, don't we? Are you not bullied by regrets? Isn't it an amazing thing? You don't even have to be with the person, and you can have a regret come up, and it starts to paint all the pictures about where you missed the mark and why you failed where you failed and what you're going to have to do to make things right. So you start being pushed even as you're being pulled into that dream. Yes or no? This is an important idea. Neil, bullied by the others. Neil says, bullied by the expectations of others. So you understand this, Neil, you are never bullied by the expectations of others. You are bullied by the idea that you have to live up to the expectations of others. And that's the only bully there is in that relationship. Gino, bullied by the idea of I have no purpose. You could say, let's turn it around. I'm bullied by my ambition. And if it's not my ambition that I'm bullied by by my depression that I never lived up to what it was that I thought I was supposed to live up to. Isn't that a bully in your life? Steve, bullied by any thought that isn't practical. Bullied by fear of missing out. That's a pretty big one. All fear, incidentally, is the fear of missing out. We'll go into that. Mike.
Uncertainty.
I'm bullied by uncertainty. How many of you understand that? Wayne.
I'm bullied by anger.
I'm bullied by anger. Anybody else in the room? Chris.
I'm bullied by my reactions.
I'm definitively bullied by my own reactions, which as we go through this, I'm just going to get a few more so that we can round this picture out. How, notice the urgency in my voice, the silent pain in it. How can I be bullied by my own reactions? This is what I want you to try to see before I go into how all of this takes place. How can I be bullied by my anger? Is it mine? If it's mine, certainly I have authority. How can I be bullied by the fear that I'm going to not live up to the expectation of another person? Who's bullying me? Please, this is the question that you never ask. You never ask who or what is bullying me. Because the minute the bully appears, this mind that is the creator of what bullies it points to what it says is bullying it and then is bulled into trying to overcome what it says has taken over its life. Please. How can I be bullied by my own ambition? How is any of that possible? Because I have never once stopped long enough in the midst of the throes of the torment involved in being preyed upon by my own thoughts and feelings to say, hold on a minute. I am in this kind of pain again? Where is this pain coming from? Because if there's one thing that should be evident, at least to the aspirants at the level of being able to listen to me, is that I've been answering the bully for my entire existence. It's all I've ever done. I went to school. I might have lied. I might have cheated. I might have stolen. Everything I did that was dark and misleading and harmful to another human being, I did because something bullied me into doing it, and I never questioned the authority of the bully. Because it was more important to get rid of the pain involved in being bullied than it was to try and understand the actual source of that suffering, without which there would never come an end to the bullying, I might add. This is why we meet. This is the only reason why we meet. This is the only reason that truth has been sown into this world. So that by its light, an individual might get to the point where, in the midst of all they have done their entire existence, and if you can see, we can certainly put all of these things together in this list that we made and see without a shadow of a doubt that one of us knows something about these bullies that everyone has described, yes or no. So they're not my personal bullies. Doesn't it feel very personal to you? Doesn't it feel very personal to you when you're being bullied? How is it possible? One day, with God as my witness, if you persist, you will start to find yourself being bullied around, pressed to do, to get, to act. And it'll occur to you that whatever it is that needs to be done in this moment, it has nothing whatsoever to do with what that bully is telling me to do to be free of it. Nothing. And when you reach that point, which you will in incremental levels, you can't do this all at once. This system of ours doesn't have the wherewithal yet to consciously suffer the entirety of itself. That's why it is always deflecting the moments that seem to deliver the pain of that, oh my God, now what? Here's what you have to do. You must go here and do this. So what is it then that's holding my feet to the fire? Will you agree something's holding your feet to the fire? So the assumption is there's someone or something out there that has a fire and holding my feet to it. Yes or no? There's only one thing, and one thing only, that bullies you. And until you understand the one thing that bullies you, you will continue to agree to be bullied and then agree to do what the bully tells you to do to free you from it. And you know what the only bully there is in any of our lives, what it is? It's what I want. There's no other bully. I could stop the talk here, because how can I be bullied by the things, by what I want, when all I want is to be free of being bullied? I want to be able to be at peace with myself. I want to be able to sit at home and not have my mind tear at me or prop me up or push me or pull me in this direction. And the only way I know how to find a life that is at peace with itself is to want what I don't have yet, in order to ensure that when I finally arrive at that point in time when I do have all that I need to be stronger than what is bullying me, then I'll be able to just get rid of the bully like water off a duck's back. Except for one thing. What is it that bullies you? What is it that bullies you? What bullies you is when you run into moments that you don't want because it's interfering with what you do want. So it makes no difference want or not want. We're in a relationship with something that, having no understanding of it at all, punishes me. I am punished by this for the sake of what seems to be a time to come when I'll be free, when everything will be the way it's supposed to be. So I ask again, well, here I am, I'm disturbed. I'll make sure I'm talking to the right group. How many of you are disturbed? When did that disturbance begin? When did that disturbance begin? What's disturbing me? Something's happened that I don't want. So when did that, see, to us, that's the moment when the disturbance happened, was when something happened I don't want. That is not when the disturbance happened. The disturbance happened when I wanted what I wanted. Then, under the throes of time, conditions change, and the consciousness that was identified and complacent in what it had thought it had found to complete itself suddenly realized, well, wait a minute, it's not. I'm not. And the minute that I feel that I'm not, is that not the presence of the bully? I'm not okay, it's not okay, it won't be okay, you must do something. Do what? Anything to get rid of the pain that has suddenly swept over me because this disturbance came out of nowhere. The disturbance didn't come out of nowhere. That's our mind. That's our mindset. That's the problem. How is it possible to be tormented by myself? Can we agree that much? You can say, well, no, I'm not tormented by myself. I'm tormented by my mother, my brother, my father, my sister. I'm tormented by those idiots on the right or the idiots on the left. I'm tormented by those religious zealots. I'm tormented by you, Guy. Well, you're not tormented by anyone outside of you. What people and conditions serve is under grace to show you where it is the mind that has become identified and attached with any image is already tormented and just waiting to experience itself when the conditions finally prove the necessity for trying to fix life. All right, I'm going to tell you a story now. Take a nice deep breath. I'm the first to tell you you're going to have to reach. I struggled with this in ways I can't begin to tell you, to convey an idea, But then when I reach the end of the story, if your jaw doesn't drop and your socks roll off, then I will explain to you the meaning of the story. Then, God willing, your socks will roll off and your jaw will drop. You ready? Once upon a time, there was a very, very successful businessman. And he was like the heroes and icons of today, running these the biggest 10 Fortune 500 companies. And his mega corporation, 400,000 employees all over the world offices. And this man's life, he never got married. He's just busy, just busy from morning to night, go, nonstop. And he had all of this energy to do so, and he was greatly admired by those who profited from admiring him. You are so gullible. Oh, God. Anyway, jetting here to there, 9 cellular phones, a whole bunch of stuff strapped to his various ears and nose. Now they're wearing goggles wherever they go. And he literally is in another world at all points and times. So that everything whirling around him, including all of the sycophants, is that the right word? Yeah, the sycophants, some of whom reliably, responsibly provide a service. But when you reach a certain level like that, you're surrounded by individuals. Believe me, I grew up in a world where this was the case. You're surrounded by people who can't wait to say yes to you, so that in saying yes, without knowing it, they become invaluable to you because now nobody disturbs you. And this is the end all be all for most of us, is to have everyone and everything around us just never disturb us. And why don't I want to be disturbed? Because I've done everything to make my life undisturbable, and yet here it is. And when it gets disturbed, I have all of this and I go into my room and I'm a wreck because I'm being bullied by one more thought telling me, well, you didn't get this quite finished up. You better get on with it and get that right. Yes or no? So when you have an estate like that, run a big business like that, he also has a massive estate. And look, who am I to say? Maybe you need 42,000 square feet and 98 bedrooms and 62 bathrooms. I don't know. Maybe you need that. Maybe there's nothing else to do with your money, which is ludicrous. What? I have to stay off that path. And so he's got this estate, and he's got 35, 40 people working for him all the time. Everybody in the house all the time. And this suits the man because now he really has no time for himself. He has just time to try to deal with everything he needs to deal so he can keep everything in place the way it needs to be in place. And why does he want everything in place the way he wants it in place? So he's not disturbed. And the minute he gets disturbed, what's his solution? Hire somebody to be bullied by what he doesn't want to be bullied by. In the old days, they called that a whipping boy. Anyway, part of this man's estate, he had a massive wine cellar. And he had $1 gazillion in wine stashed underneath his house. And out of all the people that worked for him, he had a man, his name was Will, who was his vintner, is that right? A vintner? Who's the guy that serves you wine in the restaurant? A sommelier. So his name was Will Sommelier. And he was also a vintner. But Will had a certain quality to him. He was honest. He actually loved what he did, and he loved helping his boss enjoy these things. And from time to time, it was rare, but he was about the only man that the owner, the businessman, would sit down with and have a glass of wine or sherry or whatever it was. And they would talk about things. It was his only chance he ever had to really talk to anybody about things that mattered. Anyway, one day, downstream from all of this, there's a certain business meeting taking place in his home, and there's about 30 people seated around this big table, and they're drinking wine, and Will is there serving. And all of a sudden, one of the big TV screens goes like that, and the next thing you know, someone had hacked his entire system, and for a split second, all you could hear was shouts and gunshots, and then for a split second, an image would appear. This is your brother. Somebody's got taken over your offices, and they're going to kill us. Oh, it's a fuzzy noise and terrifying. Well, Will looks over to his boss, and he wants to say something to him because this call came in from Shanghai. I had to pick a place. I have nothing against Shanghaiese. The office was overrun. The people were going to, his brother was going to be murdered. All this stuff came pouring in, all broken up in pictures. You get the idea, right? Unless you deposit 50 million Swiss francs and 300 gazillion cyber flinks. Because if you don't, everybody's gone. Everybody that you love in Shanghai, curtains. So if you want to save everybody, you must make this deposit sooner than later. Well, can you imagine what happens in a situation like that, right? Poor, what am I going to call this man? I'm going to call him Thomas. Poor Thomas just goes nuts. Oh my God, he throws the phone in the air, he rips off his goggles. He says, call the negotiating team. Get SWAT on the phone. Get the jet. We got to go over there. We're not going to let these idiots get away with this. And you pretty much in an upheaval, yes or no? And then 10 minutes later, the FBI is crawling over the place, police cars outside, sirens, everybody running around, the general condition of perfect chaos, yes or no? And this poor man, Thomas, is being pulled this way, he's being pulled that way. And obviously he's being preyed on, isn't he, by his own thoughts and feelings, telling him, I can't afford, what's going to happen? And he's going through this, and this goes on for 2 hours, and the whole time, Will, you know the old man in our stories? He's like the old man in our stories. He represents wisdom. Will keeps going, sir, no, not now, Will, stop it. Can't you see I have more? Can't you see how much pain I'm in and how much I have to do right away to make sure that nothing gets worse than it is? Because that's at the root of it, isn't it? I've got to stop this from getting worse. Please. No. Next morning, everybody's still going through. Will, sir, Thomas, can I talk? No. Stop it. You don't know anything about this business, he said. So this goes on and on. Finally, 3 days into it, Will comes over and says, may I? No. And Will takes Thomas by the shoulders and says, sir, you must listen to me. Will, what's wrong with you? Can't you see there's a tragedy in the making here? I'm busy. Can't you see it? Very angry and impatient that someone is interrupting what he's trying to do to get rid of the pain he's in, as blamed on the circumstance that he sees going awry. Sir, I have to talk to you. You must let me. With all due respect, you need to wake up. Never been talked to like that before. What do you mean I need to wake up? First, I've been trying to tell you what no one around you seems to remember, and if you could just listen to me, it would solve the whole circumstance just like that. Don't be ludicrous, man. How could whatever you're going to say to me change everything just like that? And he says, sir, first, you have no office in Shanghai. Not to mention, you don't have a brother to lose, let alone that you have to save. You don't have an office in Shanghai, let alone a brother that you have to save, let alone that you need fear lose. When you're being bullied, you think you have an office in Shanghai, that's doing important business, and you think you have a brother who is in danger. Now, how do I know that you think you have a brother or sister that's in danger? Because what is it that's being threatened in you by what? All right, I can see by your blank faces the story did not exactly land the way it was supposed to. Do you not believe when something is talking to you that it is directly related to you in a very important way? So you may not think to yourself you're listening or talking to a brother, but you are involved, engaged in something that is related to you in a very personal way, and that for the personal relationship, you must listen to it, or else you will lose whatever value there is in that relationship. Now do you understand what Will was trying to tell Tomas? You don't have an office there, man. You can't lose anything there. You don't have anything there. And you certainly can't lose what's related to you, because there's no one there that is related to you. Just what you have been panicked into believing is true by someone seeking to get you involved and bullied sufficiently enough to pay the ransom. I'm telling you that you pay a ransom every time you are involved in a conversation with the terrorist mind that has produced the illusion that you have something real to lose if you don't send in the SWAT team. Now, I'm going to show it to you. And may God have mercy on my soul for even attempting this. Now, that's pretty silly, isn't it? That's a happy face. As happy as I know to make it. You can see, not only on the TV screen, I have to figure out the movement here of things. Boy, there we go. You can see here, can't you? I'm holding a mirror, and in the mirror is the image of a happy person. Do you see it? You can't see that, Debbie? Okay. Everybody see it? This is me as I am. And this is who I imagine myself to be when at last everything is copacetic. Now, were it that simple that when you start to imagine a time to come that you'd see something as goofy as this in your head, then you couldn't be deceived into identifying with it. And that's exactly what happens, is that this mind, this sleeping mind, imagines a time to come, a circumstance, a place, a situation where, when it finally comes to pass, then this will be just like that. I will be happy. I will have what I want. I'll be able to do and go where it is that I want to do and go. And the trick here that I have to, again, try to explain to you is that the minute that the mind makes this image and it is reflected in that mind, that image and the self that imagines it becomes instantaneously static. It becomes a singularity. So that anything that changes the image is felt as a threat to the imagination that first conceived of it. So that without knowing it, I am bullied by what I have identified with And I'm bullied by it because when anything threatens that identity, that image, it threatens me who is fixed in it and found myself fixed by it. Can you grasp some of this with me? This is the brother that doesn't exist outside of the imagination that identifies with it. This is the brother in the story. You don't have a brother. But when we're busy living out this pain, being bullied, I can't imagine that I'm not, I can't imagine that I'm being bullied by something that has already become attached to and identified with this static image, so that nothing must mess with it. I found myself, I know myself, I will be this, I'll get there. And the minute that anything threatens that static image, the self that imagined it is instantaneously under threat and bullied by the condition it blames for the change in its consciousness. I'm bullied by my own mind that has made an image of something and identified with it, and for its identification believes that it doesn't exist or never will without what it has imagined. And if anything wants to take from it that identity, it is perceived as an enemy. The enemy must be met with all due force. And so I am bullied by the image that I don't know I'm identified with into being someone who protects a brother that he doesn't have. A consciousness that is created with the very desire it has made. It has delivered me into the hands of my own enemy. And why would I risk showing you that drawing and try to explain something to you that I understand is difficult? Because how are you ever going to stand up for yourself when you think you are standing up for yourself when you fight with someone or fight for something? How will you ever deal with the pain of the bully as long as you believe that there's something in that bullying nature that can rescue you? At some point in your spiritual life, and it comes in decided measures, you could not take it all at once. You're going to have to understand that if you want a life that isn't pain, you're going to have to die to the pain maker. That's what conscious suffering is understanding the nature of the pain maker of a divided mind and how it always delivers you into the dream it weaves, so that once the dream has been woven and you have stepped into it, you are inextricably tied into the fiber of that consciousness, and anything that challenges the dream is the challenge to who you believe you are and what you need to be delivered from yourself. This is why people don't wake up. I'd rather have something to hate or fight than have to deal with something that I of myself don't understand, and because of the bullying aspect of it, I don't want to touch it. I don't want to be involved in it. I just want it to go away. Isn't always looking for a way to avoid a pain being the same as bullied by a pain? Yes or no? Yes. So one day, a man or woman has to ask themselves, well, when am I going to stop being bullied? And the answer is, when you see the nature of the bully, that's when the pain becomes something useful instead of using you the way that it does in order to ensure the continuity of that consciousness. Sometimes you can just be bullied into staying into bed, can't you? So there's a relationship between the pain that I find myself in and whatever it is in me that finds a name for that pain. There's a relationship between that. And it never dawns on me that the relationship between the part of me that finds myself in pain and the part of me that names it are one and the same thing. One and the same thing. So that what has to take place is that there must come a time where you understand, you know what? I'm going to have to live with this pain without explaining it to myself. Without looking for a way to get around it or outside of it or to change him or her or this or that. Because I get it. Bringing you back into the story, there I am. My mind is hacked. And there's the fuzzy screen and something saying, oh, you're a threat. You're under, and you feel it all. You feel every last part of it, don't you? As if somehow or other, whatever it is that's being broadcast through the psychic system is separate than the system that broadcast it. But it's not. It's a singularity that can't be seen as a singularity because the nature of the mind that is bullied always must have something to fight that bully with, else how could I possibly explain myself to myself? I don't have the quote with me, but I remember reading it long ago. Emerson was talking about the necessity of a human being to come to grips with themselves. We never come to grips with ourselves. We're always coming to grip with what we believe has a grip on us. And if you've understood anything that I've said, that nature that by the way, it always phones it in. It always phones it in. There's a note slipped under the door. You never see the actual threat. You see what you are told is the threat. That's what you're given to see, and you're given to see it by the consciousness that has produced it, the moment that that consciousness identified with a time to come where you will be happy and content and complete. And once that image, once that relative, do you understand the relative business now? Isn't that a relative of mine? I imagined it into existence. I imagined a time to come into existence. The minute that takes place, I am subject on the spot to anything that suggests it's going to be other than that. And then I'm fighting. There's another kind of fight. It'll cost you everything. It will cost you everything. Do you know why it'll cost you everything? Because you not only have to die to your brother, but you have to die to the one who's identified with it. Because they're not opposites. They're not separate. They're opposites. They belong to one another. Neither I exists without the other. Neither I, no, I'll never get good at this. Neither I exists without the other. Does the time to come exist without the nature that demands it? Does the nature that demands it exist without the I, without the happy time to come? Are they not a singularity? And isn't every bully in my life connected to something that is interfering and disturbing with whatever it is that has been fixed in this mind as a time when it'll finally be free? So the bully of your life is your idea of what it means to be free. That's the only bully you have, is this idea of what it means to be free, because there's no such thing as a time to be free outside of something that has imagined it and the self that identifies with it. Let's take a break, come back and have a dialogue, see how it goes.
Welcome back, everyone. We're going to get started just in a minute with our questions and answer time with Guy. But first, I'd like to just give you a quick reminder that all these free online talks are sponsored by Life of Learning Foundation, a nonprofit foundation here in Southern Oregon. And Guy is the director. And we always want to give everyone who would like to an opportunity to give if you wish. And you can do that at any time at guyfinley.org/donate. And go to that page, and there's many other ways that you can give back if you'd like. But we do appreciate donations of any size, and it helps us to be able to disseminate this information as far and wide as we can. So thank you in advance, and for those of you who will help us all the time, and thank you for those who would like to join us in helping us financially. So guyfinley.org/donate. A couple quick things I just want to remind you of is that Friday night is our study group. And what we do is that's from last Sunday's talk. You'll get a reminder of this. We go in depth with some of the students here. We talk about it together. It's a great time to do that at 7 p.m. Friday night. That's not Eastern, that's Pacific time. And then you see in front of you there all the other times that Guy speaks during the week. So do take advantage of as many as you possibly can. All right, I think we're ready to get going. Guy, let's bring Guy in, and we will. Guy, do you have anything before we get started?
No.
Okay. All right, let me invite everyone on GoToWebinar here. You can raise your hand. I see Namita has raised her hand. And it's a good time now. Come on into the queue if you have a question. If something impressed you in a certain way or you have some gratitude, go ahead and raise your hand and let us know. Also, again, you can write your questions in. And we have 2 of those right now and 1 in the queue. So let's go ahead and start in the queue, Guy, with Namita.
Hi, Guy.
Hi, Namita.
So I just wanted to talk to you about some of the things that are happening.
Sure.
So after hearing your talks, I was from what I learned from the last weekend of wisdom. I was seeing things and then dropping them as I go, and it was working really well for me. So I was very happy about that for a while, and then suddenly, one day it was like I don't know what I was seeing and what I was dropping or what was dropping. Like there was no center to who was dropping things or seeing things. So now I don't know how to function because I have always, I know that I feel like I have always worked from a center, but now I feel like there is no center, and so I don't know how to function without a particular desire or an ambition.
Let me rephrase what you're saying, Namita. You don't know how to feel certain about your life without being able to think about it. And that part of you is telling you something terrible has happened and I'm not going to be able to function. That's a bully. We just have this. And it's like a disease. It is a kind of a disease of this consciousness, this constant demand that I know where I am, what I'm doing, where it's going to lead, and eventually where it will bring me to this place of spiritual understanding. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil. Translation, yea, though I have been brought to this place where I can't see ahead, I don't want to look behind. I don't know where I am. I'm not sure what's going to happen, and I can't stand it. But if a person understands that, I didn't bring myself to this place. Something has shown me that I cannot see. Something has made it evident that of myself, I cannot make intelligent choices. Something by the grace of God has delivered me from the illusion of some grandeur sense of myself that's significant and particular and powerful, and somehow or other all that's been stripped away. And when at last the real fruit of my work is laid out in front of me, then I don't want it because I don't understand it and I don't know what to make of it. And you just have to get there 1,000 times, Namita. And then begin to do the one thing that Namita doesn't want to do, which you said, I don't have a center anymore. Where are you analyzing this from? All analysis begins with some form of trying to figure out what's bullying me, or how do I get in charge of a condition that seems greater than my ability to deal with. You're a warrior, Namita. Stay in the battle. Ask God as you understand God to help you see the things that you need to see so that you can be free of Namita, not so that Namita can be free and you enjoy the fruits of your spiritual work. That's insanity. Nobody really understands the spiritual life. Because the spiritual life is not about the addition or the incrementation of some character or quality that you have vowed makes you unique and spiritually special. It is about the absolute disappearance of everything that you ever attributed the word I to. That's what real spiritual life is. The disappearance of the familiar I, which, by the way, is the same as the disappearance of the bully. If you have something else to say, Namita, we can bring you back on. Otherwise, we'll go on and see if anybody's left.
Okay, I just muted her again. I brought her back in, but I don't think she has anything more.
Okay.
So, Guy, we're going to go to a written question that came in this morning, and this is from Phil. And Phil says, "Good morning. My question is, what is the soul?" I think I'll leave it there. The rest isn't. What is the soul?
What is this pain, Phil? I want to know all of these highfalutin spiritual things. And I don't know the first thing about my own nature, let alone something that may be more or less eternal within it. But for the sake of giving you something that might be helpful downstream, there is no one and there never will be anything like who you are, Phil. Because in the moment of the creation of that kernel of energy around which formed this body and into which that body became conditioned and conditioned by, were certain essential and likely celestial, if not eternal, essential elements, all of which came into a collusion, into an adherence, into a singularity in one respect, so that in the amalgamation of all of the possibilities of that particular time and place when that energy coalesced into the character that it did, that would then serve as a working place for everything within that everything in that coherence that was imbalanced or needed fulfillment or perfection, that could only be done so by something acting upon it to bring into that possibility the awareness of itself, the consciousness of itself. We ask questions like, what is a soul? And we're not even conscious of ourselves. You're not conscious of yourself. You're conscious of the bully. You're conscious of what you don't want and what you wish you could be free of. You're conscious of what you wish you could get. But self-consciousness? You should forget the whole idea of anything having to do with an immortal soul and just concentrate on what it would be like to be in my body and conscious of everything that is coming into my body and revealing to me all of the characters and qualities that are made in the image of God that form this body. Then you have a chance to understand something. On we go.
All right, next in the queue is Beverly.
Hi, Guy. Good evening.
Hi, Beverly.
You always give me a different perspective. So, at first, when I was listening to your talk, I'm thinking bully. So, I only know bully the way I know bully.
Right.
And then you gave me a whole nother perspective.
Yes.
And so, it occurs to me that I know that I find me on this journey. The person that I find is I find me. And so, and however I'm looking at it, and with the second, or with the other perspective way to look at bully, then I get to see myself take this thing apart one piece at a time so that I can really grasp what it is that I'm dealing with over here within myself. Mm-hmm. And so, I'm so grateful to be in your presence because, like I said, I think that I'm going to use these words for lack of a better way to explain it.
That's fine.
The thing that trips me up is that I only know it the way I know it.
Exactly.
Then when you bring it another way, then I have to look at it another way, and then I can take it apart, disassemble it, kind of sort, to make it dissolve and go away.
Yes. Okay, so this is good. I'll make two comments, Beverly. First, thank God something can change my perception. Because unless my perception changes, then it will cling to what it perceives as being responsible for its pain, and it always places its pain outside of itself. Number one. Number two, in this change of perception, I start to realize I am all the time being bullied by something telling me to rush. Well, how can I be bullied by myself? And as I begin to look at that, the natural revelation of what had been concealed produces another kind of question in my own consciousness that my consciousness didn't ask before because it was blind to the fact of what it is and does. And in that, Beverly, maybe we can start by saying, and we do when we talk sometimes, we take piece by piece by piece. But in the end, this is not piecemeal work. In the end, this is the gradual revelation of the entirety of this consciousness, so that that which can see the whole of something recognizes where it is that it's being bullied by a part. How can a part bully the whole unless the part believes itself to be the whole? And it's not. That's how we grow, Beverly. That's how we begin to enter into a new relationship. Christ called it metanoia, a new understanding but agreeing that if we're going to have this new understanding, it's going to come at the cost of seeing that what I formerly understood, I didn't understand it all the way I dreamed I did. And then the whole thing has to go away so that something new can come in, and then I can begin to see the whole thing again through a new set of eyes. Then you're on the right track, doing the right work, Beverly. On we go, Doug.
All right, Julie has asked Kate, her hand doesn't work, so I'm going to try to see if we can bring Julie in. She's in the queue. She's not in the queue, but we're going to bring her in. All right, Julie, can you unmute yourself?
Hello, am I unmuted?
Yes, you are.
Okay. I experience freedom from myself, or freedom from fear, when I'm jogging with choral music, and for some reason at airports. I'm not worried about what's around the corner. All is well. Self-forgetting occurs. And I don't know why that is, but most of the time I spend in fear, and I want to go pull the covers over my head. I resist change. I resist to all kinds of unwanted moments. And one time my girlfriend called and said, "What are you doing?" I'm crying in a rocking chair because I'm crying because I'm beating up on me. And is my mistake that I'm looking at both of those as me, and what I really am is freedom from me? How do I get there besides those two ways?
Yeah, well, when you're running and listening to music, it seems like you're free. You're not free, you're just fully identified with one particular center or two at the time. So there's no room for anything to come in because your identity is established in the movement, in the freedom of the movement. And that's nice. That's why people climb mountains. There's certain meditative qualities to exercising, but it's not the freedom we're looking for. Because the minute you stop running and the music goes off, then the mind starts running and you're right back to being in a fearful state again. You know, I can tell by what you're saying, Julie, but it just, you know, I want to be encouraging. I made myself some soup today. And when I make myself soup, I season it. And I know when I have seasoned it enough, because the soup is the soup that I have come to enjoy. We are unseasoned souls. We're unseasoned souls. And it isn't that we haven't had 10,000 seasons in which and through which in time we are made able to see these things. We're just slow on the uptake. And one of the things that slows us down, Julie, is that this wanton use of the word I this, I that. You will start to understand the nature of a fearless life when you realize that there is something in you, in this consciousness, Julie, that can't wait first to identify with something that promises you freedom from fear, and the minute that the identification takes place, you are remanded over to an order of your own mind that will find a problem with what you've imagined, something will threaten it, and that fear will come flooding right back in, and odds favor that you'll just get deceived into doing that time and time again until the soul is seasoned enough to recognize I mustn't add anything of myself to this moment. My soul activity must be to see myself as I am, Julie. That's all. And then you'll gather insight. That's what seasoning the soul is gathering insight into the fact that you never stop cooking your own goose. Thank you. Who cooks your goose? Who cooks your goose? You. Nobody else. You supply the roasting pan, the oil, the cloves, the garlic, everything, the whole thing, kit and caboodle's you. You cook your own goose. So how do I finally stop cooking my own goose? I have to see it. On we go, Doug.
All right, Guy, we just have one more written question and no one else in the queue. So I'm going to go ahead and read the question from Jamie. Jamie says, I am bullied by my nighttime dreams. They used to be nicer. Is it a good sign when they are bad?
Hi, Jamie. I love the ocean. If I had my way, I would live right there on the water all the time, snorkeling and scuba diving, being underneath the water with the creatures. I say that because the only way a man or a woman comes to know anything is by spending time in it. You don't spend time in your own mind. You don't spend time drawing near to the things that cause you pain. Because your pain tells you the answer is to draw away. One day it'll dawn on you, and I pray to God that sooner than later you're going to have to say, you know what? I cannot leave this body without having understood its purpose, let alone its pain. I can't. I'll have missed the reason for being alive. Then you'll understand, well, the only way that's going to happen is that when things draw near to you and you don't want anything like that near you, that's where you have to go. That's what you have to enter into. That's what you have to agree to embrace with every part of yourself that you can. And when you see that you can't or won't, you embrace that and you enter into your own refusal and you see it. You go into it just like you would go into the ocean so that you can feel the peace and support of the waters. So do you have to go into this observation, into this self-understanding so that you can be supported by the eyes that allow you to see the truth of yourself and in that be freed from yourself. That's all.
All right, Guy, we have a clean slate. No one in the queue and no more written questions.
Stay the course. Do your work. Don't faint. If you faint, get up. If you get up, fall forward. Do what you have to do so that you can have new understanding every day, including understanding that of yourself you can't do anything. Whatever it takes, gain the insight. If you do that, you will never be sorry because you will begin to see what only God gives you the eyes to see, which is the truth of yourself. And in that, there's freedom. And in that only, freedom. Bye.